نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, through the grace of Allah Azza wa Jalla, we're able to complete our first module. From today we'll be commencing with our second module. In the last lesson that we did, we covered the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam, and what was discussed under the hadith were etiquettes for seeking knowledge, discussion on Iman and Islam, discussion on Ihsan, and some of the signs of the last hour. So this is what was covered in the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam. So today we'll be doing the hadith on fate, destiny. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Inna ahadakum yujma'u khalquhu fi batni ummihi 40 yawman nutfatan, ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك, ثم يكون مضغة مثل ذلك, ثم يرسل إليه الملك فينفخ فيه الروح ويؤمر ب4 كلمات بكتب رزقه وأجله وعمله وشقي أم سعيد فوالذي لا إله غيره إن أحدكم ليعمل بعمل أهل الجنة حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع فيسبق عليه الكتاب فيعمل بعمل أهل النار فيدخلها وإن أحدكم ليعمل بعمل أهل النار حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع فيسبق عليه الكتاب فيعمل بعمل أهل الجنة فيدخلها." رواه البخاري ومسلم. Translation of the hadith: the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Verily the creation of each one of you is brought together in his mother's womb for 40 days in the form of a nutfa, a drop of water, semen. Then he becomes an alaqa, clot of blood, for a like period. Then a mudgha, morsel of flesh, for a like period. Then there is sent to him the angel who blows his soul into him and who is commanded with 4 matters: to write down his rizq, sustenance, his lifespan, his actions, and whether he will be fortunate or misfortunate. By the one other than whom there is no deity, verily one of you performs the actions of the people of paradise until there is but an arm's length between him and it, and that which has been written overtakes him. And so he acts with the actions of the people of hellfire, and thus he enters it. And verily one of you performs the actions of the people of the hellfire until there is but an arm's length between him and it, and that which has been written overtakes him. And so he acts with the actions of the people of paradise, and thus he enters it." Reported by Imam Bukhari and Muslim in their collections. Now this hadith is a very important hadith, a fundamental hadith, which discusses a lot of things, which discusses matters of aqidah, which discusses the stages of the creation, the stages of the creation of mankind. So the second slide, hadith. Verily the creation of each one of you is brought together in his mother's womb for 40 days in the form of a nutfa. Then he becomes an alaqa for a like period. Then a mudgha for a like period. Commentary. In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ explains the 3 stages the creation of mankind goes through. He explains that the semen settles in the womb for a period of 40 days. Then it turns into a thick red blood resembling a blood clot for a period of 40 days. And then it turns into a morsel of flesh with no flesh or features for a period of 40 days before the soul is blown into it. That is a total of 120 days before the soul is blown. So the soul is blown into the body after 120 days as indicated by the hadith. So the 3 stages are discussed in the hadith. The first is the drop of semen settling in the womb for 40 days. Then it turning into a blood clot for a period of 40 days, and then it turning into a morsel of flesh for a period of 40 days before the soul is blown. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentions the 3 stages the creation of mankind goes through before the soul is blown. And the Holy Quran mentions all the stages that are the 7 stages in total. So the Quran explains the creation of mankind in detail in various places. So the 7 stages are, number 1, the creation from clay. Mankind have been created from clay. Then the settlement of the drop of semen in the womb. Then the semen turning into a clot of blood. Then the clot of blood turning into a flesh. Then the flesh being made to a bone. Then the bone being closed with flesh. And the final stage, the blowing of the soul into the body. And it becomes a new creation as described by Allah Ta'ala. So Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Mu'minun, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِنْ طِينٍ ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةً فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ ثُمَّ خَلَقْنَا النُّطْفَةَ عَلَقَةً فَخَلَقْنَا الْعَلَقَةَ مُضْغَةً فَخَلَقْنَا الْمُضْغَةَ عِظَامًا فَكَسَوْنَا الْعِظَامَ لَحْمًا ثُمَّ أَنشَأْنَاهُ خَلْقًا آخَرَ فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. And indeed we created humankind from an extract of clay. Then we placed each human as a sperm drop in a secure place. Then we developed the drop into a clinging clot of blood. Then we developed the clot into a lump of flesh. Then we developed the lump into bones. Then we closed the bones with flesh. Then we brought it into being as a new creation. So blessed is Allah, the best of creators. So Allah Ta'ala is mentioning the stages, the stages behind the creation of mankind. Allah Ta'ala mentioned all the 7 stages before the soul is blown. And finally, it becomes like a new creation, as though it is a new creation compared to his initial stage, where it was a drop of semen. Then Allah Ta'ala suddenly makes it into a complete human, as though it's a different creation. Suddenly he starts to hear after the soul is blown. Suddenly he starts to see. Suddenly he starts to move. فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. So blessed is Allah, the best of creators. So Allah Ta'ala has created humans in different stages. In another explanation, what he means that Allah Ta'ala, He shifts our creation after the soul is blown. So from infancy to childhood, from childhood to maturity, then a fully then to a adult person, then to extreme old age. So Allah Ta'ala is responsible for all these stages. He's the one that is making it happen. So Allah Ta'ala, just as the way He was responsible for our creation in the origin of our creation, similarly He's also responsible for all the stages that will take place after our creation. So Allah is the one that is making all this happen, all these different stages. So this should create in us the greatness of Allah Azza wa Jalla. We should ponder over all these things. Then Allah Ta'ala, He will give us death. Then he will raise us. All these stages, it's continuous. ثم إنكم بعد ذلك لميتون ثم إنكم يوم القيامة تبعثون. Next slide. Then there is sent to him the angel who blows his soul into him and who is commanded with 4 matters to write down his sustenance, his lifespan, his actions, and whether he will be fortunate or misfortunate. Commentary. After the 3rd stage of the creation, when the body is fully formed after 20 days, Allah Ta'ala sends an angel with the command to blow the soul into the body, which is the 4th stage, and to write down 4 matters. His sustenance, it will be written how much or how less would he receive from his sustenance. The halal and haram he will consume, he will benefit from, whether they are edible or not edible. So everything will be written. His lifespan, how long he will live, and the exact time he will breathe his last. The good and bad actions he will commit. So everything will be written. Now we know that Allah Ta'ala has written our destiny many thousand years before he created the creation. As stated in the Hadith, Rasulullah said, كتب الله مقادير الخلائق قبل أن يخلق السماوات والأرض ب50,000 سنة. Allah Ta'ala ordained the measures of the creation 50,000 years before he created the heavens and the earth. And his throne was upon the water. So now the question arises, if Allah Ta'ala has already written our destiny, why is he again commanding the angels to write down the four matters? So the answer to this is, yes, everything has been written before the creation, before Allah Ta'ala created the creation, before he created the seven heavens and before he created the heavens and the earths. But commanding the angel is basically bringing it to the knowledge of the angels, making them aware of the matter. Before that, they didn't know. So they write it down, so they are aware of the matter. Otherwise, everything has been predetermined. Everything has been destined. Now, this hadith discusses qadar, taqdeer, one's fate, one's destiny, a very fundamental hadith, which requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of deep knowledge. So I will very briefly touch upon the matter of taqdeer and the stance of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. What's our approach? How should we be approaching taqdeer? What is required from us? So Imam Baghawi Rahmatullah, a great mufassir and a great muhaddis, he says believing in qadar is absolutely mandatory. And it is that one believes that Allah, the Most High, is the creator of the action of the servants, the good and bad actions. He has written the destiny in the preserved tablet, Lawh al-Mahfuz, even before he created them. And the occurrence of everything is through his decision and will, except that he is pleased with iman and obedience, for which he promised reward, and he is displeased with disbelief and disobedience, for which he promised punishment. Qadar is a secret from the secrets of Allah Ta'ala, which no close angel nor no sent prophet is aware of. It is not permissible to delve into the matters of qadar, nor to discuss it through one's logic. Rather, it is necessary to hold the belief that Allah the Most High created the creation and made them into two groups. He created one group for the bliss of paradise out of his grace, and the other group for the blazing fire out of his justice. So that is the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah stance. That's our stance on qadar. We just believe in it. We do not delve into it. Allah Ta'ala created everything. He is the organizer of everything. He is responsible over everything. He is behind everything. We believe in it. We do not delve into it. A beautiful lesson from one of the narrations of Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. A person asked Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu regarding qadar. Look at the reply of Ali radiallahu ta'ala. He was an ocean, he was a giant scholar during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So look how he replies when the person asked him regarding qadar. Like, what is the meaning of qadar? What's its reality? أخبرني عن القدر. So he said, طريق مظلم لا تسلكه. وأعاد السؤال فقال بحر عميق لا تلجه. فأعاد السؤال فقال سر الله قد خفي عليك فلا تفتشه. So the person asked Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, tell me about Qadr. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, it is a dark path that which you cannot tread on. The person again asked Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu the same question. So he replied, it is a deep ocean you cannot dive into. The person again asked Ali radiallahu ta'ala the same question. He replied, it is a secret of Allah, that which is kept hidden from you, thus don't delve into it. So this should be our position. This should be our attitude when it comes to Qadr. Many people have, many great scholars have, many ocean of knowledge have, but they slipped. Now there is a basic principle when it comes to knowing something and not knowing something. There's one type of knowledge. There are two types of knowledge. One is ilmun fil khalqi mawjudun. The other is ilmun fil khalqi mafqudun. So the first one, ilmun fil khalqi mawjudun, is that knowledge that is known to the creation and that which we are told to seek and practice upon. So this is a knowledge which is that we have access to. We can seek and we are told to practice upon it. Whoever rejects this type of knowledge will be committing kufr, will be committing disbelief. The second type, ilmun fil khalqi mafqudun, knowledge that is unknown to the creation and that which we are told not to seek and not delve into. Whosoever claims to possess the knowledge that is unknown to the creation, he will be committing kufr. Simple as that. One knowledge you know, one knowledge that is known to the creation, Allah Ta'ala has made it accessible, Allah Ta'ala has ordered us to learn it and to practice upon it. We should suffice with that. Whosoever rejects this type of knowledge will be committing kufr. The other knowledge that is not known, we shouldn't delve into it. Qadr is one of those knowledges. It falls under this category. It's not known to us. We do not know the reality. We shouldn't delve into it. Wherever that is in the Quran and Sunnah, we believe in it. And wherever explanation that has been given by the scholars of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we suffice. We do not go beyond that. Whatever explanation that has been given by the 𝐿 by the 𝐒𝐿, we suffice. Whatever explanation Imam Azam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah has given, Imam Malik has given, Imam Shafi rahmatullah has given, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal has given, we suffice. This is enough for us. We do not need to go beyond it. Second slide. So the hadith, by the one other than whom there is no deity, verily one of you performs the actions of the people of paradise until the end. So the commentary of this hadith, in this hadith the Prophet ﷺ is hinting towards one fate, whether it is destined for good or bad, it will surely happen. Meaning of the Prophet ﷺ statement, verily one of you performs the action of the people of paradise until there is but an arm's length, all the way till the end. What he means is that the person being destined to be fortunate or misfortunate is hidden during his lifetime, and the pinnacle of one's faith or rebellion does not manifest itself except in the final stage of a person's life. This is the meaning of the hadith. So the person being destined for good or bad is determined, is manifest, is right to the end of a person's life. So whilst during his life cycle he will not know, but to the end of his life he will manifest. He will be, and based on that he will be given Jannah or Jahannam. He does a bad action, he'll be given he will enter into Jahannam. If he does a good action, he will enter into paradise. The sign of a person being destined to be fortunate is that he is naturally inclined towards good. Now, how would you determine? How do you know a person is fortunate or misfortunate? So the scholars have explained the sign of a person being destined to be fortunate is that he is naturally inclined towards accepting the truth, following it, seeing it as a means of goodness, and the ability to do good is made easy for that person, and that is what makes him from the fortunate ones. So you see that many people, they are naturally inclined towards good. So if someone is naturally inclined towards good, inshallah, through the grace of Allah Azza wa Jalla, he's a Jannati. He is a fortunate person. Because a person who is destined to be good, to do good will be made easy for that person. For him to pray Salah is not difficult. For him to worship Allah is not difficult. So that is a sign that is a sign that he's a Jannati. On the other hand, the sign of a person being destined to be doomed is that he is very hard and stubborn-hearted, rejects the truth, and the ability to do bad is made easy for that person, and that is what makes him from the doomed ones. So a person who is destined to be misfortunate, is easy for him to do bad. It's made easy for him. He can easily commit sin. He can easily commit any evil. 𝐷𝕥𝐽𝐻 rahmatullah said, while commenting over the passage of the hadith, verily one of you performs the action of the people of paradise. In explaining this hadith, he says that a person engaged in doing good and then committing an evil in his final moment, which ultimately dooms him to hell, is a very rare occurrence. He says it doesn't occur, and not something that predominantly occurs. This is because of Allah's compassion and infinite mercy, that the person changing from bad to good is very common, compared to the people changing from good to bad, which is very rare. He then states, Allah saying in Hadith al-Qudsi, verily my mercy surpasses my anger. Then he quotes this hadith. So it's very uncommon that a person from good, he changes from good to bad, compared to a person who changes from bad to good. So he explains that because of the infinite mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla. The journey when a person is good, even in his final moment, he's in a good state. He's worshipping Allah. He's reciting the kalima. It's very, very rarely seen that a person to the end of his life, all his life he did ibadah, and suddenly he commits a bad deed. Now the last slide, lesson from the hadith. Ponder over the creation of Allah, His perfection in creating, and the system in which He is running the universe. Our worship, remembrance, and pondering over His greatness is a form of showing gratitude towards Him for everything He has done for us. So Allah Ta'ala is telling us in the Quran that we ponder over His creation in order to create this azma of Allah, this greatness of Allah Azza wa Jalla in our hearts. So we should ponder over His creation, the stages He created us, the system of the universe. That should take us more closer to Allah Azza wa Jalla. It should draw us more closer to Him. From the hadith, we can learn that to do everything slowly, gradually, and systematically is the best and most wise way, which promises a good and fruitful outcome, as it is indicated in the doing of Allah Azza wa Jalla, that He created us in many stages, even though He is all able to create anything instantly. So Allah Ta'ala is creating us in stages. Allah Ta'ala created the creation in stages. Does that mean Allah Ta'ala cannot do? No. Allah Ta'ala can create everything instantly. He doesn't need to follow any system. He's not bound to follow any system. He can do anything instantly. Kun fayakun. He orders and he becomes. So the reason why Allah Ta'ala created everything in the stages is because of His wisdom, and to also teach us that we should also do everything slowly, gradually, and systematically. We shouldn't hasten, we shouldn't rush in doing anything. So there are great lessons. The latter part of the hadith is a great lesson for the believers not to be overconfident nor complacent over the good actions, and refrain from feeling proud, being arrogant, displaying bad character, to be pleased with the decision of Allah, and to be in the state which is between fear and hope, meaning to be fearful over the punishment of Allah and to be hopeful over His mercy, and neither of the two should be absent. So what should be our attitude? That whenever we perform good deeds, we're in a good state. We should never be overconfident. We should never be complacent, because anything could happen. And the best state to be in is to be between fear and hope. Fear the punishment of Allah and be hopeful over His mercy. Always be in that middle ground. Similarly, when a person commits an evil act, he shouldn't be despondent from the mercy of Allah. So the way a person who performs a good deed, he shouldn't be too complacent. Similarly, a person who commits a bad deed, he shouldn't be despondent over the mercy of Allah. He shouldn't lose hope. He shouldn't be thinking that I'm finished. He should have hope in Allah Ta'ala. That's why istighfar was legislated. Tawbah was legislated. There's a way out for us. One should never give a verdict over the actions of anyone, like saying to the one who is performing a good deed that he is from the people of hell, or to the one who is committing an evil act that he is from the people of paradise, after coming across hadiths like this, as the knowledge of the abodes of the servants is only with Allah. So after reading this hadith, don't start putting verdicts that this person is good, he could be going to hell. This person is bad, he could be going to Jannah. You do not make these verdicts. We are no one to give these verdicts, make the judgment, because the knowledge is only with Allah Azza wa Jalla. We should be doing what we are supposed to be doing. We shouldn't be preoccupying ourselves, being judgmental, giving verdicts. We should be doing what we are supposed to be doing. Keep on doing good, keep on praying to Allah, keep on doing istighfar. Keep on seeking refuge in Allah from His punishments. After reading this hadith or any other hadith of that nature, one should not give up doing good deeds, thinking that everything has been written and the actions wouldn't make a difference, as this is a clear deception of shaitan and a grave sin. The Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to do good and not to give up doing good based on one's fate. He also said that the one who is destined to be from the people of paradise, performing good deeds is made easy for him. It is reported from Ali radiallahu ta'ala that he said, we were in the company of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a funeral procession in Baqi al-Gharqad. He said, there is none of you but has his place written for him in paradise or in the hellfire. They said, oh Allah's apostle, shall we depend on this fact and we give up work? He said, carry on doing good deeds, for everybody will find it easy to do what will lead him to his destined place. Then he recited the verse in the verses of Surah Alam Nashrah. Alam nashrah laka sadrak wa wada'na anka wizrak alladhi anqadha dhahrak alladhi inna ma'al usri yusra inna ma'al usri yusra inna ma'al usri yusra fa idha faragta fansab wa ila rabbika farghab. So he recited this verse. The meaning, as for the one who is charitable, mindful of Allah, and firmly believes in the greatest reward, we will pay for them the path of ease. And as for the one who is stingy, indifferent to Allah, and staunchly denies the greatest reward, will facilitate for them the path of hardship. So it's from Surah Al-Layl, from verse to 10, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited. So that is also mentioned in the Quran, that a person who is destined to be good, to perform good deeds will be easy for him, and a person who is destined to be bad, to be misfortunate, to do bad, will be made easy for him. Sorry, it's Surah Layl, Wallayli idha yakhsha, not Alam Nashrah. Naran wasayda alladhi The verse is just gone off my head. فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَى وَأَمَّا مَنْ بَخِلَ وَاسْتَغْنَى وَكَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْعُسْرَى. This verse, not Surah Al-Nasrah, Surah Layl. So the verse is أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى. That is the person who is destined to do good. Everything is, to do good is made easy for him. And as for the person who is destined to be doomed, the verse وَأَمَّا مَنْ بَخِلَ وَاسْتَغْنَى وَكَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْعُسْرَى. So it's Surah Layl from verse 5 onwards. The next slide, the hadith on innovation, on the severity of innovation in Islam. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Man ahdasa fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fa raddun." Rawahu al-Bukhari wa Muslim. Wa fi riwayatin li Muslim, man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fa huwa raddun. On the authority of the mother of the faithful Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "He who innovates something in this matter of ours that is not of it will have it rejected by Allah." In another version in Muslim he reads, "He who does an act which we have not commanded will have it rejected by Allah." The next slide. Introduction to the hadith. Hafiz ibn Rajab rahmatullah said, this hadith is among the fundamental hadiths in Islam and is like a weighing scale for the outwardly actions, the way the hadith of niyyah is a weighing scale of the inner actions. So the wonderful comparison he has given. So the way the hadith of niyyah is instrumental and essential for the inner actions, the hadith of the severity of innovation is a weighing scale, is fundamental for the outer actions. He further explains the way every action in which the pleasure of Allah is not sought, its doer is not rewarded. Similarly, every action which is carried out not in accordance with the command of Allah and His Messenger is rejected. So he compares the essence of each of the actions, the way without niyyah, action is not a person is not rewarded for his action. Similarly, a person who does not practice in accordance with Quran and Sunnah, his action will also be rejected. So someone committing bid'ah, he's obviously going contrary to the Sunnah. His actions will not be accepted. He will not be rewarded. Rather, he will be punished. So the hadith, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Who innovates something in this matter of ours that is not of it will have it rejected." Commentary. So discussion on bid'ah, linguistic meaning of bid'ah is every action that is newly introduced. So everything that is newly done is bid'ah. Technical meaning of bid'ah is to introduce an action that didn't exist during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that which Allah Ta'ala and His Prophet have not permitted. That which Allah Ta'ala and His Prophet have not permitted to be introduced. According to another definition, is to add or decrease anything from the religion after the time of the Sahaba without any permission from the Sharia. So the summary is that to contradict the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in terms of belief, in terms of action, and in terms of statement is bid'ah. So to go contrary to the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ in belief, action, and statement is regarded as bid'ah. The next slide. So now we have learned the definition of bid'ah. Now we want to know what does not come under bid'ah. Certain actions, which actions do not fall under bid'ah. This is what we will discuss. Every action the Prophet ﷺ have not done, despite the necessity being present, but not in his time. and his refraining from doing the action is due to the presence of any obstacle or there being no need to implement the action in his time. So this is the definition. You'll understand the definition through the examples. So this definition supports the case of Taraweeh prayer with congregation and the gathering of the Holy Quran during the reign of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Because in the first scenario, the Prophet ﷺ didn't continue leading the people in Taraweeh prayer because of an obstacle. And that is the fear that he may eventually become farz. So when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the obstacle, which was the fear of Taraweeh becoming farz, was removed. Because laws were only legislated while Prophet ﷺ was alive, and after his demise, nothing will be revealed, no legislated by Allah. So what does it mean by every action the Prophet ﷺ have not done, despite their necessity being present all the way till the end? Meaning, you can take the Taraweeh prayer with congregation as an example. So during the time of Rasulullah ﷺ, praying Taraweeh Salah with Jama'ah was legislated. So Prophet ﷺ continued leading the people in Taraweeh Salah with Jama'ah, meaning under one congregation, not praying separately. But then the Prophet ﷺ had the fear that the way people are coming and gathering, the Taraweeh Salah may become farz, and once it become, meaning praying Taraweeh Salah with one congregation, it may become farz. And once it becomes farz compulsory, my ummah will not be able to continue, they will not be able to hold fast to it. So this is the reason why Rasulullah ﷺ stopped leading the people in the Taraweeh prayer. So this was the obstacle. The obstacle was the fear of it becoming farz. So when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, so there was no, there was no possibility of any new law coming, because the Prophet ﷺ passed away. He's the Sahib Sharia. Sharia laws were only legislated when he was alive. Once he passed away, so the fear was removed. So it was okay for the Sahaba to agree upon uniting upon the decision to make the Taraweeh Salah, to congregate, to lead, to keep the Taraweeh Salah, to keep it under one congregation, because the obstacle was removed. There was no obstacle of it becoming farz, because Rasulullah ﷺ passed away. So the Sahaba, they, once they felt the need to make the Taraweeh Salah under one congregation, they're all united. All the Sahaba, they united, they agreed upon the matter. So it's Ijma'u Sahaba. It's a consensus of the Sahaba. So they agreed to make the Taraweeh Salah under one congregation. This is one of the examples. So this is not bid'ah. The Sahaba uniting upon the decision to make the Taraweeh Salah with one congregation is not bid'ah. The second example, as for the compilation of the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it because he didn't feel the need to do it. Okay, so Rasulullah ﷺ only did where he felt the need. So during his time, there were many huffaz of the Quran, memorizers of the Quran. So there was no need to compile the Quran, because there was no fear of the teaching of the Quran 𝐥𝐸Zing. So during the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, many memorizers of the Quran from the Sahaba were being martyred, and there was a fear of the teaching of the Quran being 𝐥𝐸Zed. So the task of compiling was undertaken. So again, during the time of Rasulullah ﷺ, the Quran was not compiled, meaning it was scattered. Everyone, they had their own collections on whatever means they had, on animal bones, on branches, etc. During the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, it was compiled in a single copy, because many Sahabas were passing away. So that wasn't found. Sahabas memorize of the Quran passing away, that wasn't there during the time of Rasulullah. It was there during the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, and there's a very long story behind it. So anyway, the Quran was compiled. Similarly, during the era of Usman radiallahu ta'ala, when Islam was spreading far and wide, and each people were only familiar with the dialects of the Quran they were taught. So they started criticizing the dialects of each other due to ignorance. So it was decided that everyone unite upon the Qurayshi dialect, which was the dialect in which the Quran was revealed initially. But during the time of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala, obviously Islam was spreading far and wide, Muslims were conquering countries, people were accepting Islam in large numbers. So the people in each region, they were taught different dialects of the Quran. So we know the Quran was revealed according to 7 different dialects, 7 different accents. So in different regions of the Islamic Empire, they were taught different dialects and not all the dialects. So what happened that, when people from different regions, they mix and they met each other, and when they would read to each other, they started contradicting. They started, giving the verdict that you're wrong. But in reality, they were all right. They were all reading what was revealed, but it was different dialects. But because of ignorance, they started criticizing each other, and there was a lot of fitna. So then what Uthman radiallahu decided that let's unite everybody upon the Qurayshi dialect, the dialect which was initially revealed upon Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There will be no contradiction. Otherwise, there'll be lots of contradiction. People will do takfir of each other, people will do tadlil of each other. So this again was an bid'ah. This was, so the Tarawih Salah with congregation and the compilation of the Quran, these are not bid'ah, they do not come under bid'ah. So we'll leave it till here. Inshallah, next week we'll continue from where we left. So we covered the matter of the matters of taqdeer, qadar, fate, destiny, the stages of the creation, and we have covered some of the slides of the hadith on the severity of innovation in Islam. Inshallah, we'll leave it till here. If anyone has any questions, they can ask, inshallah.